So I thought that I would share 5 of my favorite flowers to dry. They're also what I think are one of the easiest things to dry. You really don't need to do much to them, and this is one of the reasons why they're my favorites, apart from them looking really beautiful. So I thought first I'll just introduce their names and then show you how I dry them. So the first one is in my hand. It's called Stirlingia, and this is an Australian native. This one is already on its way to drying. You can see some green stems here and the darker stems. So the darker stems have dried more than the green stems, and this is what they look like. The next one is Misty. So you've got different colors of Misty. It's what's called a filler flower. So it's not a focal flower, just fills in holes and bouquets and whatnot, and it's just a really pretty dainty flower. The other one I'm going to show you today is called Statice. This also comes in a range of different colors: purple, yellow, pink, white. The stem looks like that. This is still quite fresh. I haven't had it sitting in water, but it still is maintaining its shape. So a few days it's been out of water and it still maintains its shape. And that's the flower. The next one is one of my absolute favorites. It's made a comeback. I'm not quite sure if people of the 70s still like it, but it's baby's breath. And you can see the stems are still green. And yep, the last one is paper daisies, or everlasting daisies. I'll just go through each of them and I'll tell you how I dry them. So this is about a bunch. Anything loose, you can just take it off, and if it's loose, I just keep them together and I'll just put them in a little jar. So I have some that have just fallen, so I just collect these, put them in a little jar, upright. You can hang them upside down, but these are just so little, they're gonna dry easy peasy. Just put those there. It's important to go through, especially because these are so tight together, like they get caught. So if you pull them apart, I would personally go through it and just make sure there aren't any molding bits. The other thing too is when I bought them, I take them out of the water because you want the stems to be dry. Mold will collect and it'll get stinky, it'll get mushy and just really gross if you don't do that. That's with all flowers. Take them out of the water, pull these apart, look for any mold, and then I do try and keep the length, but you don't have to. And I'll just put them in little bunches. I mean, it's fine to have a bunch like this, but I don't have the most perfect damp-free, dark spots. I just hang them wherever I can, and so for me it's worked out better to separate them in smaller bunches and to not tie them so tight. So you can see here this dark, let me get these out of the way. This is what I mean, like the stem will get yucky and mushy and gross, so you could just take that off. And I should have brought my snips, which I've got down here. I'll just cut them off. Yeah, so I put them in upside down just because it keeps its shape better. If you keep it up this way, it might be fine, but it's just a process of elimination sort of thing. You want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to ensure that it dries the best way possible. So it might work for you to have it dried upright, but more often it's better like that. So I would just tie some string, tie it with a rubber band and put it somewhere away from the sunlight, but it doesn't have to. It does discolor things, sunlight, but you can also get some really cool effects from that. So I would do something like that, hang it upside down somewhere, even if you want to like display it on the wall while it dries. Somewhere dark is always better. All right, I'm going to put this. The next one I'll show you is Misty. Misty is pretty much the same with the baby's breath. It can get caught and tangled, and so this is the stem, and I would, just to be safe, you know, if you grab a bunch, a super big bunch, and you test in your drying spot that that area can be good for drying bigger bunches. You know, say you have a few bigger bunches and it doesn't get moldy and it dries really well, then do that. But and now that I've moved into a different place, I'm not quite sure what it's like here, but I would do smaller bunches and not so tight. So I've got this rubber band that it came with, and I'm just gonna fold it over and I would just put it through, and that's as tight. You can do a little bit tighter, but you know, it's just better safe than sorry. And then it can just hang on a hook or something like that. So with Misty, I find hanging upside down for sure. If you hang it up this way, it will droop. And it does have a curvy shape oftentimes, which is really nice, makes it more interesting. But I just think that let gravity do its work. And it's just such a pretty flower. And you can, I don't know if you can see on here, but it's got little purple dotty bits. So quite easy. I don't know how you could make a mistake with drying these. This is very easy. Same with the baby's breath. They're really quite easy to dry. This next one I'll show you is Stirlingia. So you just grab the little pieces, don't throw them away, because you can put these in, you know, wreath arrangements or even in a little tiny vase and just I do have a tiny vase somewhere I could show you, but there's such a cute flower. This is also an easy bunch to dry. These are just made for drying, honestly. So I would pull them apart, separate them. You might have to be a little bit tough with the separation because it can get all tangled and whatnot. And just hang it upside down in its little groups. Make sure the stems are dry. Hang it upside down, away from the sun, or if you want to experiment and you prefer what the sun does to it, then that's it. It's really a easy thing to dry. Just look really pretty. So I can feel that even though a few days ago I took them out of water, I can feel that they're wet. So I might even pop these on my step or a table outside in the sun and just let it completely dry. You do not want moisture because moisture will be mould. Cause mould. Okay, with these guys, same sort of idea with the other flowers, but what I would try to do just to ensure that there won't be any mould is I will pull the green bits off the stem, the little leafy bits. I just pull those off just to be sure. So you don't want it to get all mouldy and gross. Same again, wrap it with your twine or your whatever, tape, anything. Hang it in little groups upside down. And I find these take, and the baby's breath and the Misty will take a good few weeks till it dries to the point where you can feel that it's drying, basically. Okay. So these guys are easy. They just require some work. So it's not another just hang it up and you're done. You do have to go through these and get rid of any that have mould. And you will see it in this bit, or you will see it underneath, or you will see it. So these I've bought a few days ago and I've not had them in water. So they're getting old, as you can see. They're not mushy, so they're not that bad. So you just take a look at them, especially here, make sure there's no mould, or down the stem, make sure there's no mould. Now, the extra step you have to take with this is to pull all the leaves off. This is what I do to every single stem, and it takes a while, but you're less likely to get mould. So just make sure, and it gets all brown and scrunched up there. I don't particularly mind it, but if you do, just pull them off. Now, dealing with nature, you just can't predict. So you might have luck with the same type of flower doing the same thing and it just didn't work this time, and that's just working with nature. So with these guys, I do tend to do smaller groupings. I will completely get rid of the green leaves and give them some space to breathe, because they do tend, here you go, that's what will happen to them. So I'll get rid of those completely. And just check the other two, yeah, good. So I'll do smaller groupings. This one I might just chop up a bit. He seems to be going a bit yuck. So he was going a bit yuck down there, so I just chopped him up. And I get to reuse them for something else. Alright, so I put them in smaller groupings with, I'm just going to take the leaves off now so you can see. Just checking them. Yep, so I'll do smaller groupings. I might do more than this. But as I said, I've moved house. Don't really know what these are going to be like in this space. So I'm just going to do smaller groupings, see how it goes, and then just combine more if I feel like they can stand it. Yeah, I'm just going to get rid of this guy. So you can snip them off or cut them, pull them off, it doesn't matter. They're going to be dried. Yep, so I'll just tie them up, hang them somewhere, and I will keep an eye on these ones just because, you know, they're just prone and easier. I find that it's easy for them to get mould. So I just do whatever I can to help them. So you do have to do a bit more work with them to get to this point, but you just hang it upside down, keep an eye on it, and then you'll get beautiful. They won't be firm like this. They will be a bit more shriveled, but they should be able to they should be able to stand erect. Otherwise I would wire them. I do tend to like wiring them, but it takes such a long time. But look how pretty that is already. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna go through all these and separate them and put them into their groups. So I might do that as a separate video. done now putting them all in their bunches, and I had to get rid of one Misty because there was just too much mould, and because they're so thin it would just be a pain to snip through, so got rid of that. So this is it. I did leave some bunches bigger than others of the same flower types, but if I keep an eye on it, it'll all be fine in the end. Got tons of bunches of these baby bread. Oops, what Misty's here. These took a very long time. So that's that. I will show you what they look like once they're dried, and if I find a clean space I might even show you where I've hung them in the house or in the garage. Alright, so it's been about 2 weeks. And I wanted to show the progress of these guys. So these paper daisies are new Strawflower, but these were about 2 weeks ago I dried them. So here's a comparison. These are still green and fresh, and these are feeling a bit more woodier and dry. And they sound and look a bit more aged than these guys who are fresh. And there's some more here from about the 2 week mark. Here is the Stirlingia. So these ones you can't really tell apart from the stem. You know, the stem will go this browny colour and obviously be more tough, less bendy than the fresh ones. The Statice is still aging. They'll take a while before they are properly dry, but you can hear what they sound like dry. They look like less grey than what's, less green than what's in this video. These are a bit more green, but you can see they're a bit more dry as well because they've shriveled up. The stem colour is changing, and then it's also the feel of them, just a bit more crunchy. And then the Misty. So again, looks really green in this video, but I can see that it's lacking life. And yeah, so I'd say a few more weeks and it'll definitely be dry, but I wouldn't have a problem using this right now in a dried arrangement. And just a few other things that I'm drying, the rice flower and just other colours of Strawflower.